Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope and the FPL eye test for GW26, where we take a look at this weekend's Premier League matches from an FPL perspective. And the first match we're going to talk about is Aston Villa against Nottingham Forest, because that was the most exciting match out of the first few matches that we had this weekend. And that was basically a goal fest from start to finish. The first goal happened after only 3 minutes, just about. Ollie Watkins, for all of the guys that had brought him back now, finally got some of those Watkins points that you've been missing out of the last few game weeks, because Watkins is just in fantastic form. Aston Villa as well have found out something offensively, and they're just playing really good attacking football currently, and that's what we're going to see as well with the other goal scorers this game. But beautiful setup by Leon Bailey. He's been amazing for Aston Villa this season, and again, a really nice setup. Dribbled past a couple of players, passed it in to Watkins. A guy almost handballed it, actually, so it was almost another goal for Douglas Luiz, who actually scored 2 goals after that. But yeah, opening goal for Watkins, really nice for those of you guys who have him back, especially those of you guys who captained him. I know my co-host on the FPL Scope podcast, Kevin, captained Watkins this week after a couple of weeks without having Watkins, so he felt pretty good about the game especially. But those who felt even better about the game were the ones that, well, potentially had Bailey as well, but especially those who picked up Douglas Luiz for this game week, because he was a kind of interesting pick before this game week. A lot of people talked about him as one of the best players to have if you're looking to not free hit in Game Week 29. And I did mention him as one of those guys, but I didn't have him in my own. I actually preferred Bailey over Douglas Luiz in my videos last week, but both of those guys ended up playing really well. But Douglas Luiz actually got the most points because he got 2 goals, a brace for Aston Villa, and he scored both of those goals in the first half as well. He's really attacking, playing in really attacking spots, getting into the box at the opportune times, and he just looks like a really good pick, because most people expected with Boubacar Kamara being injured that he would have to play slightly more defensively, but that hasn't really been the case. He's still picking up really nice spots offensively. He's still on set pieces, still on penalties, obviously, even though he didn't get a penalty this game. And he scored 2 really nice goals this game. So I think he's just a really good pick at the moment, especially if you're looking to not free hit in Game 29. And I think personally that's going to be a pretty popular tactic, because I think a lot of people will jump on the wild card now in Game 27, especially with some of the players that we actually brought in rather than Douglas Luiz this week, kind of failing a little bit, as we'll get to at the end of the video. Douglas Luiz scoring 2 goals. Aston Villa had a 3-0 lead, looked to have that 3-0 lead going into halftime, but as often really the last few games, Nottingham Forest have struck back right before the half, and that's what happened once again. Corner headed back into the box from Awani, who's another good option if you want someone playing in Game 29 as a striker. He passed it or headed it back to Niakate, who scored his first goal, I think, for Nottingham Forest. So he had pretty easy shot attempt there, where he basically chested it into the goal, I think, deleting the clean sheet for Aston Villa. And that was also another big negative for other people with Aston Villa players who had more Aston Villa defenders, because Pau Torres has been just back from injury, and now he seemed to re-injure himself after conceding as well. So he had to be subbed off after they conceded. So defensively, Aston Villa are not looking that good. They have so many injuries defensively. I did mention Boubacar Kamara earlier. Konsa is still injured for a couple of weeks. Pau Torres now looking injured. Diogo Carlos has been injured. So a lot of injury issues with Aston Villa defensively, but I think that is also forcing them to just play attacking football, because you can see from the expected goals in this game, 3.57 for Aston Villa at home. They've been really good at home all season, but now especially offensively, they're just looking like a different class. So I think Watkins especially is someone that is just, someone who is a mainstay in FPL. I think most people have him at this point now. After going with Darwin for a couple of weeks, I think most of those guys quickly regretted that and went back to Watkins. But Douglas Luiz is also absolutely fantastic, especially seeing as he is on penalties, and Aston Villa are really attacking and are in the box quite a lot. So the chances of penalties for Aston Villa go up as well when they are so offensive, especially at home. But Leon Bailey as well scored the final goal, the final Aston Villa goal at least. Gibbs White scored the final goal for Forest, but Bailey scored the final goal for Aston Villa, and nice setup by Watkins, who got his assists for the game, and Bailey also got his goal. So Bailey and Watkins really a nice duo there, combining to get a goal and 1 assist each. So a lot of points to go around for Bailey, Watkins, and Douglas Luiz. If you have all 3 of those guys, that's absolutely fantastic. You must have had a really, really good game week. But I think currently Aston Villa are just looking really good defensively, and they have decent matches at least in the next 3 up until Game Week 29. Post Game Week 30 is also pretty good, but post Game Week 30 I think they have kind of difficult matches, and they most likely don't get any double game weeks either in Game Week 34 or 37. So I think For those of you guys looking to wildcard in Game Week 31 especially, I think that's the jumping off point with Aston Villa. But for now, it's all aboard the Aston Villa offensive train, especially because, yeah, they've just been scoring a lot lately. I think Tielemans coming back into the midfield for Aston Villa, or basically taking a bigger part in the midfield for Aston Villa now, has just really helped them a lot. And McGinn is taking more defensive responsibilities with Kamara out. He's still amazing. The midfield in general is really good. Douglas Luiz, McGinn, and Tielemans. I think all those three guys, before the start of the season especially, they were really underrated. Now people are talking about Douglas Luiz a lot. People are talking about McGinn a lot. Not so many people are talking about Tielemans, but he's been amazing as well lately. So great result for Aston Villa, 3.57 expected goals from them. That's absolutely amazing. 2.56 expected goals from Nottingham Forest, which is great for them. But yeah, Nottingham Forest have been, on paper at least, like when it comes to expected goals conceded, they've been one of the better teams lately. But I think ever since Nuno took over Nottingham Forest, they basically averaged about 4 goals per game in terms of both their opponents and themselves. So I just expect a lot of goals in Nottingham Forest matches, honestly. I don't really buy the whole notion that defensively they are that good. I think they're just more offensively minded now as well under Nuno. So there's just going to be a lot of goals in their games. And I think this was another example of what happens when they play matches. So yeah, they're still a decent-ish team. They're still obviously one of the bigger candidates to go down alongside Burnley and Sheffield United, as we expect, at least. But I think Nottingham Forest have at least something to I don't know what the expression I'm looking for here, but they have at least some promise to stay up in the Premier League, because they have a lot of good players, assuming they don't get hit with that big 10-point deduction if that's going to happen. But yeah, they have a lot of good players all over the pitch, really. A lot of underrated players in Nottingham Forest as well. Murillo defensively, or Murillo. Niakate scored in this game as well. He's been pretty good lately. Gibbs White, Awani is amazing. I think Gibbs White and Awani up front is going to help them tremendously when it comes to scoring goals. So they have a lot of players to use. Alanga as well. Decent. Hudson-Odoi, we should mention. He's again among the top players for non-penalty expected goal moments. So both these teams, Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest, have some really good players if you're looking to not free hit in Game Week 29. So if you're in a wildcard in 27, or if you are just set on buying players from teams that play in Game Week 29, they have some pretty good options. And we haven't seen West Ham play yet as of this recording, and I think West Ham actually have some pretty good options as well once Lucas Paqueta is back for West Ham. So I think if you have enough players, if you have like 6 or 7 players already from that are playing Game Week 29, obviously there can be more added as well once we see the FA Cup results this week. I think there's perfectly viable options in Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, and West Ham, especially that you can buy to basically accommodate Game Week 29 before you wildcard in Game Week 30 or Game Week 31. So I think that's still a viable strategy. I'm not going for that myself, but seeing how Aston Villa are doing now, maybe I should have gone with an Aston Villa player regardless, because they are just looking amazing offensively. But Watkins for now, at least for me, works out. But I think both Bailey and Douglas Luiz are still really good options. You can see Bailey there, 1.71 non-penalty expected goal moment, which is absolutely amazing. So yeah, he's still a really good pick. Douglas Luiz got the most points, but I think Bailey is still the slightly better pick out of the two. But both of them are really, really good. And you could actually triple up on those guys as well before you wildcard out of those players in Game Week 31 most likely. So yeah, really good options there from Aston Villa. Moving on to Brighton against Everton, and this was a less interesting game when it comes to goal scoring, at least. Brighton were like the better team, I guess, but Everton sort of took the lead, and Everton don't have like the best expected goals. As you can see, 0.29 is really low. But I think they actually had 2 pretty decent chances to score, or 2 attempts that were really close to going in at least. They had a cross for Calvert-Lewin, who missed a pretty open header, but that's Calvert-Lewin. I think he's gone like 18 or 20 games or something without a goal now. It's getting a bit worrying for Everton, especially seeing as Beto hasn't really hit the ground running for Everton either. We've also seen Mopai move from Everton, scoring no goals for Everton, and now going to Brentford and scoring left and right for Brentford. So maybe there's something about Sean Dyche's system that doesn't really lend itself to strikers. But yeah, Calvert-Lewin missed a pretty big chance, and then Doucouré had a pretty decent chance as well. A really nice cross from Dwight McNeil over to the back post to Doucouré, who hit it on the volley, and the ball was going towards the goal, went past the goalkeeper, but then Brighton had a player on the line saving it basically. But Everton would finally take the lead in the game. Even though Brighton had their chances as well. I think Estupiñán, who didn't play from start once again, and he's looking like a real troll for most people that haven't still, he was pretty close to getting an assist as well with the pass to, I think it was Adingra who tried to shoot it, but I think he hit Evan Ferguson in the back or something. that made sure that it didn't go into the goal. But Everton took the lead. It was basically a big, not really set piece, but a kick from Pickford all the way up the pitch to the box or Brighton's box. And the ball fell down perfectly for Jared Branthwaite, who I have in my FPL team. So I was really happy to see this goal. But the ball falls down to him on like the edge of the box, and he just perfectly pings the ball top corner, as if he was like a premier striker basically. So really, really nice goal from Branthwaite, who scores again. He scored not too long ago against Spurs as well. Really nice goal for them there. Gave Everton the lead, and it looked like they were going to bring home the 3 points as well, because pretty soon after he scored, Brighton got a man sent off in Billy Gilmore, and this was the classic red card where a guy has possession, loses the ball from a bad touch, or tries to get possession at least, and loses the ball from a bad touch. He tries to fix it again by going to the ball and kicking the ball away, but sadly he kicks through the ball and goes into the defender and hits his leg basically and stomps in with his with the bottom of his foot. So yeah, it's a pretty clear red card, but again, clumsy, not really his intention there, Gilmore, but still a red card nonetheless. Pretty similar to what happened with Harry Maguire against Fulham, as we're going to talk about pretty soon. But yeah, red card for Brighton, and at that point it seemed like Everton were gonna secure the 3 points, and maybe that was too bad for Everton, because they just started to play more defensively the final 15 minutes to sort of secure the win, and that led Brighton to have a lot of pressure on Everton as well. Like, they were able to actually be in the offensive third against Everton. I think that was a pretty bad tactic from Everton in general. I think they should have just gone for it and kept pushing basically for a goal, but they sort of tried to defend their lead with one man more. But when Brighton were attacking, they sort of had the same amount of players, and especially seeing as they have Pascal Gross and Lewis Dunk, it was only a matter of time, I guess, before they scored, and that's what happened about 4 minutes into injury time. Corner was cleared out from Everton, not cleared out good enough though, because the ball found its way back to Pascal Gross, who turned away Beto with 2 separate crossing feints where he pretended to cross the ball and then basically just took it back. And then he finally crossed it to Lewis Dunk, and Lewis Dunk just completely dominated Godfrey in the air, headed it back post, and Pickford was just a bit short to actually reach the ball. I think if Pickford was a taller goalkeeper, I think he could easily save that, but he is obviously, he's a bit shorter than the normal goalkeepers. He makes up for it with being just a tremendous shot stopper, usually pretty good reaction saves, but he just couldn't reach the ball perfectly. So 1-1 in the end there in the game between Brighton and Everton. Knocked down a peg, all of us, with the Branthwaites, with the 15 points going down to 9 points instead, because he lost 2 bonus points and lost obviously the clean sheet from that. But pretty much a deserved goal for Brighton as well, because this was a pretty even game, with Everton just taking the lead and then Brighton fighting back and getting the goal and getting 1-1 in this match. So yeah, I jokingly written there, the B stands for bonus magnet in Pascal Gross, because obviously he has that double S letter, which is German, and it looks like a B, but it is a double S. But either way, he is a bonus magnet. He had that 1 assist, and again, getting the 3 bonus points from that. So 7 points for Gross, who's been absolutely amazing the last few game weeks. So he's definitely an option for sure for Brighton. When it comes to Everton, they are most likely one of the teams to get a double game week in game week 34, so they actually have some really nice options as well. I think Jared Branthwaite now has just shown time and time again that he is a really nice player to own. I've had him in my weekly wildcard draft series for, I think, the last 10 game weeks or so, because he's just been the best like backup 4.0 sort of defender guy. Keeps getting clean sheets here and there, keeps getting goals here and there now all of a sudden as well. He's a fantastic option, Jared Branthwaite is. And I think offensively, not really that much from Everton. I think they are struggling a bit to score goals. They've had a couple of really tough matches. This is also a pretty tough match against Brighton away. But I think Doucouré is like the only player that I would potentially get in for game week 34 from Everton. I don't know, maybe Calvert-Lewin scores against West Ham next week, which I expect him to do. My favorite team, West Ham. And he goes on a run because he's a really streaky player. But unless that happens, I think Doucouré is probably the only offensive player that I'm looking for Everton in a double game week, in game week 34 potentially. But that's still pretty far off. But yeah, decent players from Everton as well. Brighton, if you want to jump on Gross, there's still time. There's still a couple of weeks where João Pedro is out as well, and he's going to be the penalty taker. He hasn't taken any penalties so far either, but he's still gotten a lot of points because he's just a vital, important cog to Brighton. He was in his debut season for Brighton. He was like one of the best value players in the whole game, and he's sort of back to those winning ways now. as an FPL option, Pascal Gross. So I think he is still a really good option to go for. So yeah, really good option there as well. What I didn't mention when it comes to Brighton is the fact that Mitoma was again injured. He's been out injured right before the Asian Cup. Going into the Asian Cup, he was injured. He came back from the Asian Cup just now, played last game, and then now again he got injured. I know a couple people brought him in as well, so bad times for them. I don't think he's out for long, but it's still like a bit of a worry that he keeps getting these injuries now, Mitoma. So yeah, that's a bit of a worry. Adingra is back for this game. He got presented before the game as a AFCON champion, obviously, because he was integral to that run for Ivory Coast. He's really good as well, but again, I think Brighton just have too many rotation potential players offensively. I think Gross is like the only safe option there offensively for Brighton, so he's the pick of the bunch, I think, for me when it comes to Brighton. And Ciso is back on the bench as well now. He's going to be an interesting option potentially if he starts playing. He was one of the like preseason favorites before he got injured, especially, or at least after he got injured. Not many people were thinking about him, but before his injury, he looked like a pretty promising prospect. So maybe he'll get into the team as well eventually. But he's also been out for a long while. So with Kevin De Bruyne in mind and his return from injury and struggling to play, I think I would stay away from Enciso as well. But Gross is still a really good option, and Branthwaite is still a really good option for Everton as well. Next match is Crystal Palace against Burnley, and I think Ulrich Glasner, the new manager for Crystal Palace, couldn't have asked for a better match or better opening match. Because even without Eze and Olise, who Crystal Palace have been pretty dependent of this season, they still managed to win 3-0 against Burnley, and that's mainly down to Burnley just being really, really, really bad. I think they are probably the worst team in the league currently, even worse than Sheffield United. There's just so little to worry about when it comes to Burnley. I think Fofana is still good. He had a goal disallowed towards the end of the match. Pretty stupid disallowed goal as well. It is technically correct because the player was offside and sort of blocked the goalkeeper from being able to dive for the ball. But I think the goal would have happened anyway if he wasn't there either. I don't think the goalkeeper would have reached it anyway. So yeah, just a real shame that he didn't just stand in the goal instead, rather than going past the goalkeeper and sort of blocking his way to save the ball. But that saved the clean sheet for Crystal Palace at least, who won the game 3-0. Again, mostly down to Burnley just being bad, really. Palace had a really good chance early with Edouard getting a pretty open header, but it was a really nice save from James Trafford, actually. I've had a lot of criticism for James Trafford. I think Burnley fans are pretty sick of him as well after, 26 games this season. But he had a really good save to start the game, but then, again, he sort of made a massive mistake, passed the ball basically straight to a Crystal Palace right in front of goal, and Josh Brownhill had to take him down, or not had to, but he sort of, in the heat of the moment, he took him down and got a straight red card for basically denying Crystal Palace a major goal-scoring opportunity. So down to 10 men pretty early, Burnley. All those of you guys with Charlie Taylor as your starting player, you finally had to put your faith back into him. After a couple nice performances from Charlie Taylor earlier in the season when you needed him, he got some points. But this time around, it was not meant to be. They actually lasted quite a long time without... or with just 10 men as well after they got the man sent off. But in the end, Crystal Palace were just too strong. Under Ayew scored, Edouard scored as well, I think. And yeah, Crystal Palace were just too tough to handle, especially after Matheus França, the really huge talent that Palace got before the season. After he came on, he was really, really good for Crystal Palace. He had the assist for the 2-0 goal. And he also got the penalty for the 3-0 goal as well. So really important player there for Crystal Palace, especially without Eze and Olise, who they've struggled without. But I think especially Eze is looking to be back pretty soon. Olise is still a couple weeks, potentially months away from being back. But once those guys are back and Glasner's new system now for Crystal Palace, I think there will be a pretty decent team to be reckoned with as well. And they also have potentially a double game week in 34. So that's also a team that you could potentially look at, especially if you're free hitting in 29 and looking to keep your wildcard until game week 35. I think there are some Crystal Palace players that you could still look at now. Maybe not next week because they have a pretty tough match next game week, but the game week after that, they have another pretty good game at home, I think. So in goal, they have Johnston back in goal. Kept a clean sheet for Crystal Palace this time around. He's kept a lot of clean sheets this season. He was like one of the best goalkeepers at the start of the season, at least before Henderson took his place. Now he's back in the fold, and I think he's a really good option. Also, I think Munoz, the new right back for Crystal Palace, is also a really good option, really attacking player. He got 1 bonus points as well, despite getting no assists or goals, and there were 3 goals in this game as well, so several other players could have had the bonus points, but Munoz is a really attacking right back for Palace. or right wing back even in the system that Glasner plays. So I think he's a really good option as well. And then offensively, you just wait for Eze and Olise, potentially Olise as well, coming back. Because if those two guys are back and they're playing in this new system, I think they could be a pretty good team for Game Week 34. But it still remains to be seen if Olise will be back at that point, and if Glasner also manages to adapt to the Premier League as well and be a good team. Because they haven't really been tested properly yet with Burnley at home, which is just a really easy match. When you play Burnley, basically just an instant win for you, because Burnley are just absolutely terrible at the moment, and yeah, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon either. Man United against Fulham is the next game, and I think this was a pretty interesting game. I think Fulham were actually, even though the expected goals doesn't really tell that story, I think they were actually the better team in the end. I think it wasn't too bad, the fact that they won towards the end of the match. Man United, obviously, they had to be without Rasmus Højlund, who's now injured again. Injured for a couple of weeks now, so I think that is, especially from this game, judging from this game, they really needed him to play for them, because yeah, they've looked a bit better lately. Man United have been scoring quite a few goals lately as well. Højlund has been scoring a lot of goals, but without him, they sort of looked a bit lost in this game, and I think Fulham were kind of on the front foot here from the start of the game. Iwobi was really central to what Fulham did. Had a couple of shooting chances at the start of the game. Was in pretty attacking positions. Rodrigo Muniz again did a nice job up front, even though this was like one of his worst games, or not. Like, he had a couple of really nice games now after Jimenez got injured, where he's really presented himself as a really nice option. But this was probably his least good game out of the last three. But still, he was pretty close. Hit the post. Was a pretty good player in this game. I think it's also someone to look out for, especially seeing as Fulham most likely have a game potentially. I don't know. That's the interesting thing with Man United as well. The fact that without Højlund, they don't look as good, and now they're going to face Nottingham Forest in the cup without Højlund, and that might actually get the chances of Man United going out of the cup and actually having a game in Game 29. Those chances might go up now. And if Man United have a game in Game 29, I think that's also another interesting thing. I think potentially it could make the free hit more interesting, because Man United aren't really the most interesting team before that, but especially if Højlund is back for Game 29, which is still up in the air. We still don't know yet. If Man United have a fixture in 29 and Højlund plays, and they have Garnacho as a nice option, they have Dalot as a good option defensively, I think a free hit with 3 Man United players could be potentially really good when they play Sheffield United at home in that game week. So that would be an interesting wrinkle to the Game Week 29 fixtures if Man United lose to Nottingham Forest. But obviously, if Man United beat Nottingham Forest will play Fulham, I think, in Game Week 29, which is going to be an interesting game as well. So you might get some Fulham players there for FPL. And where I just started with this, Rodrigo Muniz might be one of those guys who's 4.5 as a striker. He could be a really nice option if you need the money, especially. So yeah, he's still looking pretty good. Hit the post, but he didn't score this time around, which he has done the last few games. So we'll see. Maybe Armando Broja now comes back in, or comes into the team for Fulham now, rather than Muniz. But I think Muniz has played more than good enough the last few weeks to keep his place for a little bit more at least. But yeah, in the end, Fulham became the rightful winners, I think. They sort of had control of the match, and they did take the lead from Calvin Bassey scoring a goal. The centre back, really nice finish from him. He just blasted it top bins basically after a set piece. The ball felt right for him, and he sort of had the similarly nice finish that Branthwaite had for Everton, even though he's the centre back himself. Bassey, really nice goal there. Then Man United equalised. Bruno Fernandes took a shot. Leno probably should have saved it. Could have probably kept it in his own hands, or at least pushed it out wide. But he pushed it just straight to Harry Maguire, who's there on the back post, and finally not offside, and actually got his goal to stand this time around, which was really lucky. It was really close. I think there was a Fulham defender who just tried to step out, but it was just a little bit too late to step out and put Maguire offside again. So Man United equalised. And then as Man United were sort of pushing for the winning goal, Fulham got on the counter, and a really nice job from Adama Traore, who gets a lot of stick for being bad at finishing and making bad decisions, but he basically ran the length of the pitch, got the ball to Iwobi, who basically placed it bottom corner for Fulham and gave them the lead a long way into injury time. So big win for Fulham there. Fulham have actually been a really good team lately. They had a really weird period. They had like 2 games in a row where they beat 2 teams 5-0. I think West Ham was one of them, especially. I remember that as a West Ham fan. But after that, they had a pretty poor period where they lost a few games. They lost 3-0 to Bournemouth in Game Week 19. But since that point, I think they've won more than they've lost, and they've also only lost by 1 goal at most, and they haven't really conceded that many goals either. So I think Fulham are sort of in a good period now, and are a pretty good, tough team to beat. So I know a lot of people brought in like players like Fernandes and Garnacho for this game week, thinking that Fulham would be a decent game for Man United, but it proved to be not that easy because Fulham have just been a bit better lately and are still a pretty good team in Premier League. I think I've underrated Fulham for last year basically, but I still think they are a decent team. So yeah, tough match for Man United, tough loss for them, a really big setback for Man United after looking like a decent team lately. But yeah, Højlund seems to be just that important for them as a striker. And yeah, Omari Forston got to play instead, and he's a nice young player, but he's still really young, really inexperienced. So they're going to struggle a bit more with him in the side than what they would do with Højlund, who's been a revelation lately and was a really popular pick going into this game week before he got injured right before the game week. So really bad luck if you brought him in, and if you brought in Mitoma as well for Brighton, who's also injured, especially. But yeah, let's move on to the next few matches. And the first one that I want to talk about here is Bournemouth against Man City. And again, this was another game where we had a Manchester team that were the favourites and were supposed to win quite easily, but it wasn't that easy for Man City. But still, at the start of the match, they sort of had the best chances. They had a really nice chance where Foden poked it through to Haaland, who got to finish with his right foot, but he just shot it wide. A really huge chance for Haaland, but then pretty soon after that, it was the opposite, Haaland getting the ball and doing a really nice job of holding off the defender and getting a finish off at least. Again, not the best save, kind of like Leno, kind of should have saved it, just kept it or pushed it wide. But Neto, the Bournemouth goalkeeper, basically pushed it to Foden, who scored again, who's back on the score sheet. And again, he's always looked like a good option, but after a pretty disappointing double game week where he blanked in both games, he finally was back on the score sheet and got 3 bonus points as well because he was just fantastic in this game and set up a lot of chances. The one to Haaland especially that we talked about already. But yeah, he was the best performer in terms of non-penalty expected goal moment for Manchester City with 1.12. And yeah, he was really good for Man City. But I've only talked about Man City so far, but this was a pretty good game from Bournemouth as well. They only lost 1-0 in the end, and they also could have had several chances to score 1-1 as well. Solanke probably had the best chance, cross to the back post. I think it was from a corner. He headed it, a really nice header as well, but Ederson was just there on the line to save the ball from going in. It would have been a really nice goal for Solanke and those of us with Solanke still. But it was not meant to be. Solanke blanked against Man City, which was expected, but Bournemouth actually gave them a really good game in this match, and we're actually on the front foot several times. You expect Man City to sort of just ride it out and have possession and dominate the game, and the other team to just get sporadic chances. But in this game, Bournemouth actually did pretty well, and I think that speaks to Iraola's tactics as well, because he sort of did this in La Liga as well, when playing against the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. With Rayo Vallecano, he actually had a pretty good record against those big 3 teams. So I think Bournemouth are like a pretty good team against the big sides, and they weren't at the start of the season. Right after Iraola took over, Bournemouth really struggled at the start of the season, lost 6-1 to Man City the last time they faced each other. This time around, they looked a lot better, especially now at home. And Solanke could have had that goal that I talked about, the chance, but he also had a couple other decent chances as well to score. So he had a bicycle kick, among other things. So yeah, a nice game for Solanke. I still think he's in good form. I still think Bournemouth are a decent team, even though their results lately haven't really reflected that as much. But I still think they're a really good team. And when it comes to Man City, Haaland is still a really good player. He only got 1 assist from this game, which is really not what you're looking for, especially as a captaincy option, but still, it's an assist, and still he's getting chances, because he got another pretty big chance as well after this Solanke chance. He was sent through on goal from Bernardo, a really nice pass from Bernardo, but they just couldn't get the finish right. So he's had a couple of big chances missed lately at Haaland, and he got subbed off right after this for Alvarez, and that's going to be a bit of a worry as well, especially with Haaland being injured lately, and we've seen now how De Bruyne has been sort of rested as well in the league. The same could sort of happen with Haaland, especially more towards the end of the games, like in this game, where he gets taken off 15 minutes before full time, even in a 1-0 game. So that's something to pay attention to at least. Maybe that will hamper him a little bit as a captaincy option, because there are a lot more goals scored in the final 15 minutes than the rest of the game. So or at least compared to the other like 15 minutes intervals at least. So that would be a pretty big negative if Haaland keeps getting subbed off. But I think it's also just he's had a lot of games lately, and they sort of need to save him a little bit in general as well. And he's been sort of like, I've written out of form because Haaland is still getting a lot of points in FPL, even though he's like out of form by his standards at least. But he's still a really good option, and obviously Foden is a great option as well. De Bruyne is not a great option because he again was on the bench. He scored and had an assist in the Champions League, which sort of gave us hope for the double game week and stuff. Struggled in the double game week. Struggled now as well in this game. He came on with 15 minutes left. He actually got a pretty good chance to score as well, where Foden set him up. Foden had the ball in the middle, passed it out wide to De Bruyne, who was completely open, but rather than just curling it into the far corner, which we sort of expected him to do, he sort of fluffed the touch and stuff. Looks a bit rusty still, De Bruyne, so he's still not really the best player. But I still think for next game when they play Man United at home, especially seeing how bad Man United were against Fulham, I still think De Bruyne is potentially someone you could hold, but it will be very, very tempting to go from De Bruyne to Son next game week, seeing as Son has Crystal Palace. But now that Crystal Palace has a new manager, maybe it's not that easy anymore for Son. So I don't know. I think it's going to be one of the decisions that I have to make if I want to sell De Bruyne for Son, if I want to sell De Bruyne for Palmer potentially as well, who I'm looking to get in if I'm free hitting in game week 29. Yeah, basically if I want to keep De Bruyne for the Man United game where I think he'll start and I think he'll play quite a lot of minutes potentially, I think I might save him for that game and see a lot of people sell him and potentially finally get the rewards from that. But yeah, he's not looking like the best long-term option at least, so I would not begrudge you if you want to sell him after a couple pretty disappointing game weeks from De Bruyne. But yeah, 1-0 win for Man City in the end. Judging from XG, I guess it's sort of deserved, but I think this was actually a pretty close game where Bournemouth easily could have had a draw here as well. So yeah, but nice for City to get 3 points on a day where they usually, or where they could at least have lost a couple of points in this game. Same cannot be said for their title rivals in Arsenal, because Arsenal were just completely dominant once again in the Premier League against Newcastle this time, which is supposed to be a good team, but Newcastle are just struggling mightily, especially defensively lately. And Arsenal are just clicking on all cylinders and just firing on all cylinders, I think is the expression, but everything is clicking at least for Arsenal, and once again that was the case. First goal that they got against Newcastle was kind of lucky. It was, again, a set piece, which Arsenal have been absolutely fantastic at. Cross from Bukayo Saka, header from Gabriel Magalhaes. It seemed like he was going to get the goal, or at least an assist from FPL. But as the replay showed, what actually happened was the ball went into the box. His header went at Loris Karius, who was in goal this time around with Dubravka being ill. He's probably going to be back next game, but still he was ill, so it's still something to mention. But the header from Gabriel, save by Karius. People said that it was a decent save, but I don't think so. The ball went straight up in the air and sort of bounced towards the line. And both Botman and Livramento were sort of like scuffling about to try to clear the ball, but instead Livramento touches it onto the knee of Botman, and it goes in as an own goal for Botman. So yeah, pretty huge letdown there for Newcastle, but at that point Arsenal was just so much better than Newcastle anyway, and the goal was going to happen regardless, I think, even though it happened during kind of bad and kind of ugly circumstances. It was not the nicest goal to score, but still, a goal is a goal, and they gave Arsenal the lead. And then the 2-0 goal was a real beauty. Really nice run from Gabriel Martinelli. Really nice pass from Jorginho, who I think had a fantastic game. Arteta said post-game that Jorginho is actually a really nice player for some types of matches, especially that he's like a world-class player, and especially in some matchups he's going to be key for Arsenal's title chances. And that was sort of proven with the second goal here. Really nice pass to Martinelli, who had a brilliant run. And then Martinelli has an even better pass into the box for Kai Havertz, who sort of looked back to his Bayer Leverkusen days with a perfect run into the middle, sort of Frank Lampard style, scoring a really nice goal. Really nice for Havertz, who's actually looking a bit better lately as well. Maybe Arteta is onto something. Maybe we should give Arteta more credit, because I think Arsenal are looking really, really good currently. Second half, Bukayo Saka scored once again. Pretty kind of strange goal. He got the ball on the wing and sort of like, it seemed like a cross, a mix between a cross and a shot, and the ball just went into the back post basically. But again, another nice goal from Saka. His fourth or third double-digit hole in a row. I think Saka's just been absolutely on fire lately as well, with Arsenal obviously being in that type of form. So Arsenal, that was also a Havertz assist, by the way, for the Saka goal. So yeah, just a really, really nice match again for Arsenal, who scored a fourth goal with a corner from Declan Rice, who's been getting assists left and right and getting bonus points left and right basically lately. He crossed it into Kivior, who headers it. It sort of hits Lewis Miley and goes into the net, but I think it was still credited as a Kivior goal. Kivior was also a really good player for this game, playing at left back again for Arsenal. He's been stepping up lately and scored a goal this time around. He didn't get the clean sheet though, because Newcastle scored with Willock against Joe Willock against his former team Arsenal. Really nice goal at that as well, with Dan Burn coming on as a substitute, Willock coming on as a substitute, and Dan Burn putting in a perfect cross to Willock, who headed it in and deleted the clean sheet for all of those, with Gabriel, Saliba, and potentially Raya in defense. I'm talking about Kivior, and he scored a really nice goal, and he's been pretty good at left back lately, so maybe he's going to be the left back when they need more sort of defensive chops. But when they need to play more offensively in these types of matches against Newcastle, for example, I still think Zinchenko will be the first choice left back when he's back from injury, which is going to be pretty soon now. So I don't think Kivior is an option, even though he is 4.3. He would be pretty nice. But if Zinchenko gets injured, I think Kivior is going to continue to play at left back, it seems. Maybe it's dependent on what happens with Tomiyasu and stuff if they're back to play at some point. But Kivior is a decent option if there are some players missing for Arsenal, but currently I think he's still a bit too risky, but he has looked pretty good lately, so I just figure I should mention him a little bit. But yeah, Arsenal sealed it, like I said, 4-1 with the header from Kivior before they conceded the 4-1 goal. Also have to mention Isak goes back for Newcastle. He looked really frisky as well, had two really nice or decent chances as well, one where he didn't get to finish properly. Raya came out and did a pretty good job. I think Raya needs to get some plaudits now. He got a lot of criticism at the start of the season, but lately he's been pretty faultless and been pretty good when it comes to passing and all that stuff as well. So I think he's also been huge for Arsenal. I think he's a much better goalkeeper than Ramsdale personally, but either way, just figure I should mention him as well. He's also a decent FPL option if you're looking to get a new goalkeeper. Like I mentioned, Isak looked pretty good, but this was not the game to showcase him. Basically, he had a really nice run, especially, but tough game for Newcastle in general, playing against a red-hot Arsenal team who somehow lost in the Champions League, but I still think they will beat Porto in the home fixture in the Champions League. But yeah, they've just been amazing lately in the Premier League. Ødegaard again being pretty good for Arsenal, but he only got 1 point, got a yellow card as well, or 2 points because he got a clean sheet. He was subbed off before they conceded. But yeah, he got a yellow card. It's only 2 points for him. Unlucky for those of you guys who brought him in, because Arsenal were once again really good. But yeah, that's just the thing with Ødegaard. If he's not involved with the assist, he's most likely not going to score, because he doesn't really score that many goals either. But I still think he's a good option. He's one of the players I mentioned leading up to this game week. I still think he's a good option, but I think Martinelli looked like the better pick in this game. As you can see from the non-penalty expected goal involvement as well. I think Martinelli is potentially back pretty soon, because he had a pretty nice game. He also had a header that went over, which was really close as well. So I think Martinelli is a decent shout. I think Havertz as well is a decent shout. He's playing every game now. And this game he played as a striker even. Lately they've been playing with Trossard as a striker, but this game he was benched and Havertz was playing up front. Or at least was in that mid striker sort of role at times at least. And scored a goal, got an assist, got 14 points I think in general in FPL. So he's also like a low-key pick if you want to go with someone really differential in Havertz. But I think Martinelli is also a good pick. I think Ødegaard is still a decent pick. And Saka obviously is kind of essential at this point, seeing how good Arsenal are and their good fixtures as well. And potentially or most likely getting a double game week in 34 if you're looking to not use your wildcard before game week 35. So Arsenal, you should definitely triple up at some point, whether it's two defenders. Gabriel and Saliba are still really good. They only conceded 0.16 expected goals in this game, as you can see. So, yeah, whether you go defensively with Arsenal or double up on their attack, Gabriel Jesus is going to be back pretty soon. He's probably going to be a pretty good option as well. I know preseason he was a really popular option. He was probably the most popular striker in the game apart from Haaland before he got injured. So he's also a really nice option. Saka's really nice. Martinelli. I mentioned these guys a couple times now, so yeah, look out for those guys. When it comes to Newcastle, defensively, I don't think you can go there anymore. I think Trippier is just too expensive for how many goals they concede. Botman, minus 2 points in this game. Own goal. I think he got a yellow card as well. Conceded 4 goals. Newcastle did, so he's not the best either. Maybe Fabian Schär, potentially, but defensively, Newcastle just don't look the same without Pope and Joe Linton, especially, I think, so yeah, they're just struggling a little bit more this season, and it showed in this game against one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Premier League right now. And then finally, the lone Sunday game was between Wolverhampton and Sheffield United, and this was a game that a lot of FPL managers had a lot of faith in Hwang Hee-chan for, because he was the most popular transfer in, I think, about 800k people brought him in to their team this week, including myself. So kind of unhappy to see him get a blank in this game, but personally, I also brought in Ryan Ait-Nouri, who got a really beautiful assist to Paulo Sarabia, really nice cross with his right foot actually, and Sarabia headed it home beautifully. The short Paulo Sarabia, who's actually really good, and yeah, it's nice to see him get some playing time. I know Cunha being out kind of sucks, but it also opens up an opportunity for Sarabia, who looks really good. He has really nice deft touches, has a decent foot on him as well, obviously, and could potentially be on penalties. We still don't know if it's Sarabia or Hwang who's going to take penalties. I still lean towards Hwang because he took a penalty earlier in the season rather than Cunha. And he also took a penalty over Son in the Asian Cup. So I think he's pretty eager to take them. I think that's the most important part when it comes to taking penalties, as we've seen with Liverpool and Salah. But he didn't get a penalty this game, and he didn't really get that many huge chances either. He had one decent chance in the box where he got the pass from Ait-Nouri as well, and I was like getting my hopes up as I had just brought in both players. But he sort of just fluffed the touch and struggled a little bit. And yeah, just speaking of that when it comes to Hwang as well, he had an issue before the game even started. There were some worries that he was not going to be able to be fit to play the game as well. I think he was crawling around the ground at some point, sort of struggling. But he still played the match. He played for most of the match. He got subbed off a bit early though, still at around the 75th minute or so. Right after Ait-Nouri was subbed off, which was really good for me because he got an assist and he had the clean sheet locked at that point as well. So I was pretty happy to see him be subbed off, because Sheffield United were not the worst team in this game either. As we'll get to. But when it comes to Hwang, just a little bit of a notice when it comes to Hwang. I have some experience with holding on to Wang. If you want. I had him earlier in the season, and he blanked for me. He's just shooting blanks the first couple weeks, but then finally got the perfect release in the fourth game week where I had him, and yeah, holding on to Wang really pays off. So yeah, you should definitely, I think, still keep him in your team. Newcastle, they just conceded 4 goals to Arsenal. That's the next game. I think that's a pretty good game. And then they have, Fulham at home, I think, in game week 28, which is not the best game, I guess. I should just double check right now which game they actually have in that game week. Sorry, I had the wrong thing there. But either way, I think it's against Fulham in game week 28. And then obviously they would potentially blank in game week 29 if you're free hitting there. But then they have really good fixtures after that as well. So I think Hwang, I'll give him until game week 30 at least. That's at that point where I kind of want to get Palmer back into my team personally. I'll give him until game week 30 at least before I sell him, because I think he is someone who could score a goal here and there, could get a brace like he did for me earlier in the season against Brentford. So I think you should just have some patience with him. Wolves are kind of a tough team to gauge. In this game as well, they were the much better team in the first half against Sheffield United, even though Sheffield United had some pretty interesting counterattacks as well, where they were almost close to scoring a couple times there, where they got the ball up the pitch and sort of had 2 against 2 situations and stuff, but they just sort of just fluffed it because they have just a lack of firepower with Sheffield United. But first half, Wolves were just a better team and were sort of controlling the game perfectly. Second half was a totally different story, and I think this is the case with Wolves as well. They're sort of a bit up and down. They can win. They lost against Sheffield United in the opposing fixture in Sheffield. So they are a bit erratic and stuff. But I think Hwang is in central positions. He's most likely on penalties, in my opinion. I think it's like a 65% chance that he's on penalties compared to Sarabia's 35% chance. So yeah, he's on penalties most likely. He is in central positions, and he is a pretty lethal player when he gets the chance. At least he's been that this season. So I still think you should hold on to Wang for dear life, and I think that will help you in the end. Sheffield United, just speak a little bit about them. I think Ryan Brewster was actually pretty interesting in the first half, especially, but also in the second half. He looked like a decent player finally, because he's been a huge letdown since he joined Sheffield United. He was like one of the FPL standout picks when he moved from Liverpool as a youngster there to Sheffield United when they were last in the Premier League. And he just completely flopped that season. It was just 2-pointer, 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 1-pointer every single time for him. But he looked kind of frisky in this game. But still just couldn't get that finish off for Sheffield United. I think that was just the issue with Sheffield United. They don't really have anyone that can score the goals, especially now with Ben Burton Diaz being out with injury as well. they just can't get to score the goals. But defensively, at least, they've put up a bit of a fight, and they also took more of possession of the game as well. Had more possession in the second half, I think. More touches in the box in the second half, more shots on target, more shots in general than Wolves in the second half. So easily could have been in 1-1 here, but Wolves managed to keep on the 1-0 result in the end. Got the 3 points, and they'll be happy with that. We also got 3 points for Hwang, which we are not that happy with, but I think he's still going to be a decent option. But I think also, like I mentioned, I think Game Week 27 wildcard might be pretty popular this week, so that might be the case where a lot of people are selling Hwang now, which would be good for me, I think, because I think he's going to end up he'll end up being good eventually, like he was at in his first stint with my team this season, at least. But yeah, that's basically it for all of the games. Really happy with Nori getting his 12 points, like I mentioned as well. He's also someone you should definitely consider because he's just playing in super offensive positions. He's sort of playing as a midfielder, sort of. He's kind of an out-of-position defender, playing for a really attacking and dynamic Wolverhampton side. And he was actually subbed off for Tommy Doyle, who's like a centre mid. So even when they were defending a 1-0 lead. So I think he's kind of playing a really interesting offensive role. He's constantly in the box as well. If you look at his heat maps, if you look at the matches that he plays, he's really interesting. He had a really nice cross for the 1-0 goal. So I think he's definitely someone you should consider as a player for Wolverhampton. Kind of lucky to get the clean sheet, I think, against a pretty weak team. So maybe that's the point against them. Wolves aren't the best defensively, I guess, especially on the counter. But yeah, I think Nori is a really good pickup for you in FPL. And I'm really happy that I have him and his 12 points. So in general, really good game week for me. I'm going to talk more about my game week in a video tomorrow, I think. I'll do maybe a little bit of a recap because we still just sort of have to recap the past game week rather than looking forward, because we have the FA Cup fixtures now on Tuesday and Wednesday, which will decide Thursday as well, if I'm not mistaken, there's a game potentially. But either way, in midweek we'll get some FA Cup results, which will determine who blanks in 29, who doesn't blank in 29, and that will also affect what happens in the future game weeks. And we'll also get the draw for the quarterfinals, I guess it will be in the FA Cup, which will also be pretty significant when it comes to planning for future game weeks. So yeah, we can still look a little bit back to what has happened lately and potentially look at what we can do when it comes to chip strategies and stuff. But I think we sort of mostly have to wait until we see the FA Cup results and the FA Cup draw before we can draw some conclusions to what to do going forward. But maybe I'll make a little video about some differentials and potential nice players you can have going into the future, whether you're free hitting in 29 or whether you're not free hitting in 29. I sort of did that as a replacement video for Jota and Darwin last week, but maybe I'll do a broader one where I'll bring in defenders as well, because I think there are some interesting players to choose from now. But either way, that has been the end of this video, the FPL eye test for Game Week 26. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed this style of content where I just ramble on for basically 45 minutes. So yeah, getting a bit exhausted, and I'm about to go to sleep as well. And with that, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for watching as always, and goodbye.